We actually had to come up with a whole new term for this game. It's not technically the first time we've encountered this concept, but it's one of the most strong times we've encountered this. You've probably heard of a storybook game. And a storybook game is when a game's gameplay is so bad that it actually gets in the way of enjoying the game. But the story is generally considered worthwhile to actually bother with, right? This is a Squadrons game, so named after Star Wars Squadrons, where the story is so terrible it actually detracts from the enjoyment of the work. But the gameplay is pretty legit. Now, you're probably expecting me to say something like, "Oh, it's TIE Fighter." No, it totally is. It is. This is not TIE Fighter. This is Rebel Squadron, or sorry. Oh God, Rogue Squadron. There we go. Sorry, this is Rogue Squadron. If you remember that back in the N64 and the GameCube, this is that. Now that's fine. They do add a bit of energy mechanic on top of that, and there are some advanced maneuvery things you can do, but this is that. It's much more arcadey and much less simi, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And once you get used to the controls, which, let's be honest, the controls take a minute to get used to, but once you get used to the controls, it flies like a dream. Very, very arcadey, very, very responsible, or responsive, so most of the mistakes you can make are going to be your responsibility. I also really appreciated the variety of the mission design. There's a lot of cool objectives and a lot of cool set pieces, and I had fun playing almost the entire game. I think the only times I didn't was a single level early on, which was just kind of dumb and slow. And pretty much the second to last fight of the entire thing, the second to last mission, which was padded to hell and back, is the nicest way I could put that. Other than that, I had fun the entire time. One of the things I really appreciate is they actually made each of the fighters noticeably distinct from each other in a very video gamey way, which I absolutely appreciated. I know that sounds strange since everyone in the universe is like, oh my god, my immersion. And immersion is fine, but I'll take video gamey over immersion pretty much 10 times out of 10. So instead, the Y-Wing and the TIE Bomber, both of which are junk in universe, turn into actually really interesting and viable builds here because of the unique setup and the unique equipment that they can equip. And the kit and the loadout system is great. And it's just kind of cool how they make most of the ships work and make most of them distinct from each other. Big thumbs up on that one. I actually, of course, as usual, enjoy flying in the Interceptor, as that is pretty much my baby, other than the Advanced, which isn't even in this game. But no, I had more fun flying in the bombers than I thought it would. That's so strange. And I suppose, oh, the game also has good mid-mission checkpoints. Surprisingly good music, too. By a gentleman, I wrote his name down here, Gordy Hobb, which I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. So good stuff on that front. Very visceral, excellent sound design. The visuals are gorgeous in this game. There are some very, very pretty set boxes and very pretty arenas for you to fight in. Which I suppose means I now have to talk about the story. I don't often say this, but I just go watch the stream if you really want to see how bad the story is. Because it is terrible. There's a reason we dubbed a new term, Squadrons game. It's got a negative 13 to story. That's impressive by itself. Now, I'm not going to make any comment on the AU versus the EU. None of that is really relevant here. I could. I did during stream, but that's what the stream is for. Instead, what I'm going to comment on here is how it's astonishing how bad this story is. Like, I've seen worse, obviously, but it is legitimately surprising how they started off pretty solid and then just kind of never got worse the entire game. Every single mission got a little bit worse in terms of cohesiveness, in terms of how much it connected with itself or with the rest of Star Wars, even counting just the AU into that equation, or how little sense it makes. Like, one of my favorite tidbits was there, okay, we're going to go capture a Star Destroyer with a shuttle full of guys. I could go into details about how stupid that was, and I did, but all I have to do is say that sentence. When I shared that little anecdote with my brother-in-law, his first reaction was, well, I guess you don't like those guys very much. Just, right? And then they succeed, and then they never really mention what's going on with the ship ever again. It's just, now we've done it. We've taken control of the ship. like this is Homeworld or something. And there's so many weird things which just do not make sense throughout the course of it. There's a tidbit, as this is a minor spoiler, there's a bit in this game where one of the characters is on board her ship, a capital ship, and she's talking to herself. And then the enemy ship hyperspaces in, meaning they weren't here physically, blocks a shot with that hyperspace jump, and then on comms responds to the person as if he had actually heard her when he was jumping in. And that is the level of nonsense that this story descends into. It's not even interesting from like a presentation level, you know? The animations are weird and the cutscene and the blocking is just off. I do blame the animation thing entirely on the Frostbite engine because, as usual, the Frostbite engine should not be used for anything other than shooters, and that continues to be true. I don't know what else to add to it. The whole story was terrible. Like, in some cases, it was funny levels of terrible, but it was terrible. One of the objectives, the last anecdote, I swear, one of the objectives is you have to attack one of the largest and most well-defended shipyards in the galaxy as a feint in order to lure ships from a secret project away from there in order to come reinforce the spot you're attacking, so you can leave that secret project undefended. And that already makes no sense like 4 separate ways. But if I gave you more details, which I will not for spoilers reasons, you would understand how even stupider that actually is. Oh, by the way, when you get to one of the most heavily defended and major shipping ports in the entire galaxy, it is, of course, completely undefended. I still recommend this game from a gameplay axis. That's what Squadron Syndrome means. Or a Squadrons game in this case. But maybe just skip the story this time around. Just kind of, tune it out a little bit. God, that explains Rise of Skywalker too, doesn't it? Anyways, I'm going to go ahead and chop this off. I'll see you next time.